June 27th, 1988. Atlantic City. The air in the arena is freezing, but Michael Spinks is sweating. He's an undefeated champion, a legend. But tonight, he looks like a man walking to his own funeral. Across the ring stands a 21-year-old monster. No robe, no socks, just black trunks and a towel around his neck. Mike Tyson isn't dancing. He isn't smiling. He's staring through Spinks' soul. The bell rings. The world holds its breath. 91 seconds. That's all it took. 2 brutal knockdowns. 1 legendary career ended in a blink. The sound of Tyson's gloves hitting Spinks. It didn't sound like boxing. It sounded like a car crash. In that moment, the world realized one terrifying truth. 1988. 88 Mike Tyson wasn't just a fighter. He was the most dangerous human being to ever walk the earth. But behind that 91-second demolition, a storm was coming. The peak, the power, and the heartbreak that changed everything. To understand 1988, you have to understand the pain. Mike Tyson wasn't born a monster. He was built, Cus D'Amato. The man who saw the gold in a street kid from Brownsville. The man who gave him a home, a father, a purpose. But by 1988, the man who built him was gone. Cus had died 3 years earlier. And Mike? He was still grieving, still lost. In that ring in 1988, Tyson wasn't just fighting for titles. He was fighting for a dead man's approval. Every punch was fueled by a father's memory. Every knockout was a tribute to the man who saved him. The peekaboo style wasn't just a technique. It was a language only Mike and Cus spoke. The world saw a champion, but Mike saw an empty corner. He was at his peak. He was the undisputed king of the world, but he was alone. No one could tell him no anymore. No one could calm the fire. The discipline was fading. The shadows were moving in. Don King was whispers in his ear. Robin Givens was a storm in his heart. 1988. Mike Tyson was the scariest human ever because he had everything to lose and no one to hold on to. He was a Ferrari with no brakes, high speed, pure power, and a brick wall waiting at the end of the road. The ghost of Cus was the only thing keeping him from falling, until the ghost finally let go. In 1988, Mike Tyson didn't fight like a man. He fought like a machine designed for one thing: search and destroy. Watch the footage. Look at his feet. The way he cuts the ring in half. He didn't follow you. He hunted you. The peekaboo style was at its absolute perfection. Hands high, head moving, always slipping, always sliding. You would throw a jab, and Mike was gone. A ghost in black trunks. By the time you realized he moved, it was too late. The left hook would arrive like a lightning bolt. The right hand would follow like a sledgehammer. But it wasn't just the power. It was the speed. He was a heavyweight who moved like a bantamweight, a 220-pound wrecking ball that you couldn't hit. In 1988, opponents weren't just losing the fight. They were losing their minds. Before the first bell even rang, the fight was over. You'd see them in the opposite corner, shaking, avoiding eye contact. They weren't thinking about winning. They were thinking about surviving. Tyson's focus was terrifying. No theatrics, no trash talk. Just a cold, dead stare that promised pain. He was a physical anomaly, a glitch in the matrix of boxing. Every muscle was coiled like a spring. Every breath was a weapon. 1988 was the year Mike Tyson reached a level of violence that the sport had never seen before and may never see again. But while the world was watching a god in the ring, the man was drowning. 1988 was the peak, but it was also the beginning of the end. Behind the scenes, the circle of trust was breaking. Kevin Rooney, the last link to Cus D'Amato, was being pushed out. The vultures had arrived. Don King was no longer just a promoter. He was a shadow that fed on Mike's ego and isolation. Then there was Robin Givens, a Hollywood romance that turned into a public nightmare. The headlines weren't about knockouts anymore. They were about lawsuits, police calls, and a $400 million fortune starting to leak like a broken pipe. In a famous TV interview, Mike sat there, silent and broken, while Robin called him manic-depressive on national television. The baddest man on the planet looked like a lost child. He was invincible in the ring, but he was defenseless at home. The anger that fueled his boxing was now turning into a chaotic rage that he couldn't control. He was crashing cars. He was getting into street fights in the middle of the night in Harlem. The discipline that Cus had drilled into him for years was dissolving. The machine was starting to smoke. The gears were grinding. People think Mike lost his edge in 1990 against Buster Douglas. But the truth? The version of Mike Tyson that could destroy the world died in 1988. The armor was still shiny, but underneath, the heart was already bleeding. In 1988, Mike Tyson wasn't just a celebrity. He was a phenomenon. There was a feeling in the air every time he walked to the ring, a feeling that you were about to witness something historical, something brutal. Fans didn't buy tickets to see a long fight. They bought tickets to see how long a man could stand in front of a hurricane. This was the fear factor era. Opponents would walk into the arena looking like they were heading to their own execution. They saw the black shoes, the lack of a robe, the raw, primitive energy. It was a psychological war that Mike won before he even threw a jab. The media in London, New York, and Sydney couldn't get enough. He was the most famous face on the planet. But this fame was a double-edged sword. Every time he destroyed a legend in minutes, the expectations grew higher. People didn't just want a win, they wanted a massacre. And for a while, Mike gave it to them. He fed the world's hunger for violence while his own soul was starving. He was the undisputed king, sitting on a throne of broken bones. But look closely at the tapes from late 1988. The head movement was a fraction slower. The combinations were a little less fluid. The fire was still burning, but the wood was running out. He was at the highest point a human could reach in sports. But when you're at the top of the mountain, the only way left to go is down. We look back at 1988 not just for the knockouts, but for the tragedy of what could have been. That version of Mike Tyson, the one who moved like lightning and hit like a thunderbolt, didn't just define an era, he defined a nightmare. Boxing has seen greats before. We've seen Ali's grace. We've seen Frazier's heart. But we have never seen another 1988 Mike Tyson, a man who was a masterpiece and a disaster all at once. Today, we see a different Mike, a man of peace, a man who survived his own storm. But for those who were there, for those who remember the sound of that 91-second demolition, the name Tyson will always mean one thing: the baddest man on the planet. He was the scariest human ever because he didn't just fight men, he fought the world. And for one brief, terrifying year, he won. If you felt the power of the 80s, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that honor the legends of the ring. Until next time, respect the craft.